Hey, welcome to Mt.Coramba Apiculture. It's Sunday, the 19th of February 2023. Beautiful sunny day up here. It's just an amazing spot to do beekeeping. Much cooler, and I'm here a bit earlier in the morning. So last week, I think I mentioned it was mid-30s. It actually hit 38 here as I was leaving, so it was hot, almost too hot to work bees, and I was a bit worried about the nukes that I made, that it just might have been too hot to for them to recover. So, but anyway, I've been through these 15 nukes that I made up last week, and they've all got viable queens in them that are laying eggs, so I'm really pleased with that. You know, if I'd lost a couple, I'd have been still reasonably happy. I looked through 3 that I made a fortnight before, and they're doing really well, so they might get out of that free frame configuration next week and just get another few frames of foundation added to them. So there's video of that coming up, just looking at those nukes and how they're going. I've also managed to bring quite a few frames of new frames and foundation up just to add to the stockpile here. So they've gone on to some of the 10 frame hives. Another reason for the trip today was to bring 30 10 frame full depth poly supers up that I've had wrapped, so that I can get them out under permit out of the red zone up into the blue zone here. So that's a big relief to just have a few more resources around me again now, and I'm not under pressure to even hives up or mess around. So the aim of the game now is to just get as many supers on these hives before the end of the good season here, and get all those little 2 to 3 frame nukes up into 6 frame nukes so I can overwinter them. So that's the general go ahead now. Also took the opportunity, I was been messing around with 2 nukes that were just on this shady end here. When they were stripped and matted with Baverol with the DPI surveillance, they really didn't like it. It was just enough to tip the balance, and I've had problems with small hive beetle in both of those hives, so they're both struggling. One was moved further up the row last week. It was queenless and slimed. I shook the bees out, but I've just made a decision there to call it quits on that hive, and I've just put what was left of it into another hive, and they can use those resources. So it's just a good example of not throwing good after bad. You just, you know, just have to cut your losses sometimes and finish with a hive. So there's a few videos coming up. I hope you enjoy them. It's a nice short video, and we'll get up here again next week and have another look. Thanks for watching. So just going through these nukes I made up last week with mated queens. So been through most of them, about 10, and pleasingly all the queens are there and laying, so it's a good result so far. So just go through the last of these and show you what they look like. So as expected, they haven't, you know, they're not going to do much until that queen gets going, so that frame of foundation I put in is still untouched. There's our frame of brood that we put in the other day. The queen's been released. Let's chuck that on the other side, and I'm just looking for signs of eggs. No real need to find the queen, just looking for evidence that she's there basically. So there she is, actually there right on the top of the frame, so that's good. She's sitting right there, nice. And yeah, there's eggs in that frame. So put her back and let her get on with what she's doing. Foundation back in. That's good. So on to the next one. Frame of foundation untouched. So it just depends on the amount of bees that I put in and how much seal brood was in there. when I made the nuke as to the population of bees, but yeah, they seem to be fine. Yeah, lots of eggs and young larvae in there. Actually, she's doing really well. And there's our queen there, running around. And when I look in that frame, yeah, there's a great big patch of eggs there, so she's well on the way to building that colony up. I guess my aim is to have these into 6 frame nukes before the end of the season and just overwinter them as 6 frame nukes. The thing I'm a little bit worried is that they'd be too weak to deal with the beetles, but they're out in the full sun here, so they're okay, and just running out of stores, I guess. So if anything looks like it's going to be get a bit hungry, I can just bring a bit of sugar up and feed them, so that's not a problem either. On to the next nuke. This one's quite strong. The reason why it's strong is this is one of the 3 that I made up last week. So, or was it the week before? I can't remember now. Must have been a fortnight ago. So there's that queen there. So there she is. So I guess this is what hopefully the ones you just looked through will look like in another week. So all that brood that I put in there has hatched out, which has built the population up. I've got a nice laying queen. So the good news out of those 15 that I did last week, every single one of them has a mated queen going in them and laying. So if they look like this in another week or a fortnight, I'll be pretty happy. So once again, this is a nuke that I made up a fortnight ago. It's not quite as advanced as the one we just looked at. So let's see what's going on here. So frame a foundation. To their credit, they've started just drawing that out a little bit there, so that's good. A heavy frame of honey, and yeah, eggs and larvae in there. Eggs, larvae, nice store of pollen on that frame. So plenty of healthy brood in there. I can see eggs in the cells. No need to find the queen. No, she's in there, but there she is anyway. So sitting on the frame there. So they're going well, not quite as advanced as the one we just looked at, but fortnight's progress. So this is our last nuke we'll look at. So once again, this is a fortnight old. So they're looking good. Similar to the first one we looked at from last week, from the fortnight ago. And they're just starting to draw a bit of that foundation there, which is good. Frame nicely covered with bees. and I can see eggs and larvae in those cells, so no need to find the queen. Nice patch of seal brood there. So if the 15 I made up last week look like this in a fortnight, I'll be really happy. Seen the queen, but she's obviously in there. So the next step in this process will be to remove that divider board out of there, and either keep adding frames of foundation, or might even pinch a frame of brood out of the more advanced hives here. I've got the 20 good hives that are in 10 frame gear, so just to build them up a little bit quicker and give them some resources so I can overwinter them as 6 frame nukes. So that's really good. 15 queens accepted and laying, and 3 from a fortnight ago doing nicely. It's going to be good. So just looking through these hives, last week I noted on this hive, and funnily enough the one right behind it, that there were queen cells in the hive. The one I just looked at, there's definitely a brood break, so that whoever was going there is gone, and they're trying to replace that queen for some reason. So we'll have a look in this one and see what they're doing. Wasn't queenless, it'd need a super. Just get some frames out here and see if there are still queen cells in there, and just what they're doing. Try and work out what they're up to. Oops. It's a heavy frame of honey. Frame of brood here. Okay, so there's eggs and larvae there, so they're fine. Not too sure why they were building queen cells. Certainly not swarming. Anyway, whatever they were doing, they've sorted it out. People tend to panic a bit when they see queen cells, and provided it's not a swarming issue, I tend to just let them do what they want to do and come back and check on them again in a week or so and see what's going on. So whatever they were thinking about, they've forgotten, and yeah, there's plenty of young eggs and larvae in there, so I'll throw a super on this hive. They definitely need the space. Yep, no, they're good. We won't go any further. So I'll just pull one more frame out. Whoops. They're fine. So whatever they were thinking about doing, they've stopped, and back to normal. So I'll just clean the top of this up and we'll put another super on. This wax will just go under the lid from the clean up. Never throw your wax out on the ground for the bees to clean up. It's contravenes the biosecurity code of practice, and it's just stupid. If there's any disease in this hive, it'll get spread everywhere. So please don't dump wax on the ground. Another 10 frames of foundation here. Just whack them straight on the top. Not worried about queenie splitters at the moment. I just want them to draw comb, and less impediment to them getting up there the better. So they'll go straight up in there now and start drawing that hopefully. Ideally I'd like all these 10 frame singles to overwinter as doubles. Just put that in there, the bees will tidy that up. Pick it out next week. Lid on. Just going to open up this little nuke here and just have a talk about the decisions you can make around hives and what you do with them. Last week I looked at this 12th of 2nd, and I note there that I've put some seal brood into it. The reason why I did that was it was situated down the other end of the rows, just in the shade, and there's 2 hives down there when they got stripped and matted with Baverol by the DPI recently. They really didn't like it, and I think just being in the shade tipped the balance, and they both threw all the brood out, and one of them requeened themselves and picked up, whereas this one, it still had the queen in it, but staggered along, and when I checked it last week, it was queenless and starting to be slimed. So what I did was shake the bees out onto a few frames of brood and actually move the hive up here, so just to see what would happen. So I've looked through it again this morning and noted that there's queen cells in it, so it indicates to me that it's queenless, or it was queenless. So I wasn't too sure last time I looked at it. So that's a frame of brood I put in the other day just to give them a bit of hope. Try and find this frame with the cells on it. So what I'm noting is that there is no eggs or larvae in there. There's a queen cell here, and a pretty ordinary one at that, so I'm going to get rid of that. Make sure there's no queen cells left in here. There's only the one there, I think. There's another one there. Once again, pretty crappy, and they've actually chewed it out. So, you know, I could throw more resources at this. I could put a frame of young larvae in there and more bees, but you just run the risk of losing them to small hive beetle when they're compromised like that. So the decision I've made is to just put these frames next door in another hive, and just call it quits on this one. I'd rather this other hive got these 3 frames and the resources from it, rather than pulling resources from other hives trying to save this and still probably not get a great outcome. So we'll call it quits on this hive and just throw these frames into the one next door. So this is one I just added a super to. Just pull him out. So I'll just take this hive away. The bees that were flying in and out here, which weren't many, we'll just go to the hives next door. Not going to be lost. It's important when you swap frames over like this, you make sure there's no disease issues. There aren't here. Close this up, those bees will either get accepted or kicked out, but the bees downstairs will go up and take care of that brood for them. just kick these completely out. And just take that hive away, and that's that problem solved.